Hello, you are, cause welcome to part two. Julian will be on in a second. I've just sent in the link. Here we go. So it's all good. You were saying, Julian, we're filming.
Yeah, I'm back, mate. I'm
Yeah,
back.
you were saying, mate, regarding
All right, I'm just speculating now. I'm being hypothetical, right? You're an athlete. You're a boxer, and your initials are CB. Okay. You see out there's a lot of money out there, millions, and you're working hard, and you're grafting, and things are happening as quick as you want. And all of a sudden, you get an opportunity. You know, someone starts talking to you and says, you know what, look, everybody's doing this, right? All the elite fighters are taking supplements or enhancements to raise their game. It's really easy to get away with this. Now, there's a doctor here who effectively is a testosterone expert. He'll be able to give you something to increase your performance. And by the time the testing comes, it'll be long gone, flushed from your system. Now, as a young man who, and I'm just speculating, as a young man who might be really love the sport and really want to achieve things, you might think, look, everybody's doing it, so it's the only way I'm going to get anywhere. And you're tempted. The temptation's there that you're young, you're brash, you get badly advised, you get all these people around you. Listen, this is how people get into certain things, Russell, isn't it? This is how people get into drugs or crime or all kinds of different lifestyles, because the people around you saying, look, it's easy, get away with it. Yeah. No one would ever rob a bank, would they, if they thought they were going to get caught? No one would ever deal drugs if they thought they were going to do hard time. And nobody in sport would ever cheat if they thought they were going to be banned from doing so. And I'm just saying, whilst I'm really anti-performance enhancing drugs, as you know, for some people, for weaker people with weaker characters who are not getting the results they want, you can see the temptation. You can see why some people would opt for it. Because what do you and I and others say it? And I know Terry has said things like this before.
Dripping Tap spotted it before anybody.
Dripping Tap spotted it before everybody. And they say so many athletes are now doing it. So many athletes are cheating. And I don't know. I'm not feeling sorry for himself. I never defend a drugs cheat, but the temptation must be hard to resist. It must be really hard to resist at that level, where sometimes the difference might be going down that road, the difference between being a world champion or not. Because I certainly think, and I'm not going to name names, I certainly think there are other welterweights, other elite welterweights who are definitely juicing, and other fighters in other divisions. And I think drugs cheats are, personally, I think the scumbags. But I'm just trying. What I'm trying to do, Russell, is look at a scenario and not make a case. There's no case for cheating. But what I'm trying to do is trying to find a reason why somebody might be tempted to go down that avenue. And if this athlete CB did go down this avenue, you have to have an element of sympathy for him, because he looks now like he's just being left on his own. There's him and his dad, this athlete, there's him and his dad on a chat show, basically, getting asked tough questions, and they've got no answers whatsoever. And badly advised, mate. He's been badly advised. If he took something he shouldn't have done, he's been really badly advised. But the whole response to this, the reaction to this, and the way they've dealt with this has been badly advised again. And who's going to suffer really long term?
Connor,
no one else is going to suffer for this now. And he looks like a young man who's really lost, who, as I said in part one, he looks like he wants to unburden himself. And if I've read the body language wrong, I'm wrong. That's fine. If he genuinely is clean and he genuinely was ingested, or there were errors at the lab and there was contamination, you and I will do a video and will absolutely hands up and say, wow, how stupid do we feel and do we look? But I keep thinking about what you said to me. The last video we did about 3 or 4 days ago, you said to me, Russell, he goes, 270 pages, all of this stuff that's come out, and there's not one shred of decent evidence. Not one.
No. And in 10 years from now, Eddie Hearn will be putting shows on when Conor Benn's screaming at his agent because he's been overlooked for a position on Come Dine With Me.
You know what's coming, don't you? And
You know what's coming. We've seen it all unfold. I tell people, be nice to people on way up because you don't know what they're going to be like on way down. And you know, I pointed out many to you. You see it all. And Conor Benn just got too hyped up. So I hope he's still got that 14 plate Merc because he might need that down the line. Because
yeah, he might
be going back.
Listen, money doesn't last forever, mate, does it? And you know, it's the first time tonight, the first time I've wondered if he will actually fight Pacquiao, because initially I thought they'll do it, they'll do the fight in Dubai, they're shameless, they don't care. And for some reason, when I watched this tonight, I thought it was that bad. There's that little, I almost wondered if it was like they're just trying to canvass a bit of opinion by get people to feel sorry for him. See if you can get a little bit more
sorry
interest.
for him when he's going on about, I got the best lawyers.
Yeah, I know, mate. But this is what happens, isn't it?
It came out, the mask slipped, didn't it?
It did slip. It slipped as soon as they mentioned the British Boxing Board of Control, didn't it? When he goes, "You ain't having none of that." What did he say? He goes, "I'm not having none of that." He basically said the British Boxing Board of Control can do one, didn't he?
Yeah. He said, "Well, he can't fight you." Well, I'll fight him, bro. I'm not coming fighting him.
And all the British fans who absolutely love him, that's what he thinks about you guys.
What a time to be alive. Man United stuffed 7-0 and Conor Benn on ropes. We had gills.
Do you know what the thing is? Like I've started off, I felt a bit for him, and then I don't, and then I think drugs, cheats, and all this kind of stuff. But it's been a roller coaster, this, hasn't it? I bet you've covered this more than you've covered most things on your channel.
Yeah, I covered this nearly as much as Mickey Theo and Big John
Fury, yeah.
Man that don't fight.
And listen, I think we're covering it non-stop, and you're doing it non-stop because we need a resolution to this. But again, we repeat the same points.
All I'm going to say, Julian, is this. Conor, I know you're watching. Unburden yourself to your
unburden yourself, son.
Just unburden yourself. Come and tell me. Come and tell me. It was Eddie, wasn't it? It was Eddie. Come and tell me. Come and tell me. What you growling at, Rocky? Come and tell me.
Eh? There's a real good chance that a certain very well-known promoters and his men have been giving him some bad advice. You just know. But the one thing I've not been doing is watching much of Hearn lately for various reasons. I've been busy as well, but what I haven't seen is just Eddie's face all over the place. And he started saying, didn't he, about a couple of months ago, he started saying, well, this is Conor to defend now. This is for Conor. And I'm wondering if he's really stepped away from this.
Well, you've got to look at it like this. What are their options now after that tonight? After they've just drove the Titanic into the iceberg because Eddie won't looking with binoculars in Crow's Nest.
I'm really doubtful. As I said, for the first time, I'm doubtful that he will actually fight in Dubai now. I'm thinking maybe even Matchroom won't touch him now. I don't know. This is such a disaster and such a car crash.
That board's backs up now, isn't it? How can Eddie put shows on the board and they're knocking Conor Benn back? He's sort of in the middle, isn't he? It's a right.
Yeah, the board.
It's a whodunit.
If you were the Board of Control now, he's turning around and saying the Board of Control can do one. I can't see myself fighting in Britain. I'd literally just release a statement saying, good riddance to bad rubbish. We don't want you fighting in Britain. Honestly, he's not answering the case, is he? He's just refusing to answer the case. But again, we keep going back to the same point, and it's the first time ever well, we've not seen any interviews with him. This is the first one that we've seen. You can see he just wants to he needs to talk to his Uncle Porky, doesn't he? He needs to sit down, have a chat to you, mate. Let it all out.
Before I start with billboard campaign. I think we might be ready for the
Do
billboard
you know something, though, mate? I mean, what a dirty business boxing is, eh?
You know what? Conor Benn's been used as an experiment, and a bit like Dave Allen, and now he's looks like he's surplus, doesn't he?
I think I think Eddie and Conor, yeah, they've tried it on with the British public and they've tried it on with the Boxing Board of Control, haven't they? And they've pushed it to see what the response was. And I think they've got the public's back up. I mean, you only have to read all the comments. When I say read the comments, I'm not talking about cruel comments. People who are saying that Conor Benn should, kill himself and racial comments. Those people aren't worth listening to. They've got no right to an opinion. But the people who have got really good, constructive things to say, I haven't seen or read any comment defending Conor Benn or any positive comment.
I saw Caldwell come out yesterday, and they all had the doubts, didn't they? When yesterday, and there were a few of them coming out going, "Oh well, AD Alapido, he works for the zone, doesn't he?"
Yeah.
What's he said? Out and he were like, I think Conor Benn's innocent. We have to leave it at that. Listen, they all don't want to rock the boat. We know what we've seen. Fighters failing dope tests.
Innocent based on what? I mean, we know the WBC. We've covered this, and people are not listening. The WBC have only acted on the first test and they've not applied strict liability. That's why they've left him in the rankings, and because they're looking to just get a big fat commission for letting him fight for some WBC
what
belt.
What do you mean, fight you banking end, and they'll invent a WBC gold franking center belt or something?
Didn't they come up with a? I don't know what. This might be my imagination. Might be thinking of Tommy Fury, but I'm sure there was. Well, I don't know. Maybe a Son of Legends belt or something. There'll be some belt on the line that the WBC are trying to promote, and this really has backfired. And do you know what? It's also backfired on the WBC because once again, he was rubbishing the WBC. It wasn't on Piers Morgan. He was saying it's rubbish that I never mentioned eggs. I never mentioned eggs. I don't agree with them. The testing's been contaminated and this and that, and he's rubbishing absolutely everybody. And like Piers Morgan said, you got an opportunity now. Publish the document. No, my lawyers have advised this. Well, your lawyers suck. Your lawyers suck. If you've got evidence, I get accused of murder, and I've got evidence, CCTV, that at the time of the murder, I was in a different part of the country. Am I not going to produce that? Just because I don't trust the cops or something? Am I not? Of course I'm going to produce it. It's rubbish. It's absolute rubbish. You've not got one shred of evidence. Not one.
They haven't showed us anything. All they've done is show sanctioning body. They're not a commission, are they?
No, they're not. Someone, it's like I've read some of the comments, and some of them are pretty cruel, but some of them they're quite accurate, and I don't know. I want to know now. I want Eddie Hearn to go on TalkSport. That's what I want.
Yeah.
Because or even go on, go on with Piers Morgan. I just want someone to ask some pretty pointed questions, and then I'll be a little bit more satisfied. But it's not going to happen, mate, is it?
No, they're not.
Whoever's advised Conor Benn to do that, I'm speechless.
I am. Well, it's got to be his team, isn't it? Charlie Sims is his manager. Tony, its trainer. Ed, its promoter. The B team.
But where are they now? Where are they now when that young man's saying he's had all these thoughts and he's
young man like that, 26-year-old, going in there with Piers Morgan. Could you imagine if it was John Reese front board, that QC? Have you met him? Have you met John Reese?
No, but there's sharp. They're all sharp, mate. They're all Queen's Counsel. Sharp as attack. I mean, what, like I said, what would Conor Benn going in front of the boxing board of control and those guys? No chance.
This years, aren't they, for free?
Yeah, this is what they do. This is the lead you up a certain line of questioning. And I don't even think it was tough, was it, for Piers Morgan tonight?
Piers Morgan, tickle the minister below. If you're innocent, get both document, or you can't fight in Britain. So I'm not going to fight in Britain. So does that mean we're not getting document then? So what is there a document of 270 pages, or are they just bluffing?
It's just Eddie kept saying, didn't he? Wait till you see the science. Science.
Eddie's not a magician, is it? They all think Eddie's a magician. Ricky Burns and Paul Smith thought he was a magician, didn't they?
Yeah, well, we saw what happened with those guys, didn't we? And Dave Allen and the 300 grand he got offered.
We've seen it all, haven't we? While they're working in some menial job, and struggling to get a pension when they're older, Eddie will still be promoting like Bob Arum.
Yeah, even though boxers are his friends and they're all best buddies and all this kind of stuff. Where are they now? Where are these people now? Listen, if Conor Benn has done something, no one's put a gun to his head. But as I mentioned earlier, sometimes people are very influential. You know, people get into situations who aren't necessarily bad people. They just make bad decisions. And I'm not, going into detail about what my views on Conor Benn is. Not my cup of tea. I'll never change that. I think he's privileged. I think there's elements of him. He's mean-spirited. I think he's a bit of a thug, if I'm being honest. But apart from that, I don't care who you are, I'm still a person. And when I see someone who I feel has been hung out to dry and all the rats are just scurrying away to get away from this car crash, I still can't help but have an element of sympathy, might be the wrong word, but have an element of that feeling, thinking, wow, that's this guy's carrying
a kind of worms, isn't it, with his old man and Gerald McClellan fight, isn't it?
Well, I've got to look now back on his dad's career, and I've got to potentially look at that with a different lens, even though there's no evidence. You got to wonder, haven't you? I mean, when Piers called Nigel tonight, what use was Nigel Benn during that phone call?
What? It's just for viewers to get the sense out there.
But it just said, yeah, I agree. He says, why don't you just stand the documenting? Yeah, I agree. It's like, it was car crash television, mate.
His own dad hung him. His own dad should have said, no, we're not dealing with board. But then again, you can't fight in UK unless you show up dossier. So board have got him over a barrel. Whoever's advised him needs their head looking at. You know what he should have done from day one? Well, I'll tell you what. I'll ask you, Julian, as a former trainer manager of a world ranked fighter, British champion, right? What would you say to Gary Sykes now if Gary failed first test?
I'd have a little conversation.
Let's back up to July, first test.
All right. Fighter I work with fails his first test. I want to sit down with him first of all, just me and him. And I'm going to say, right, you lied to me once. I'll never speak to you again. We're done. And I'll know when you're lying. What have you been taking? I'd ask him what he's been taking. And that had been the first question. And if he then says, well, a couple of guys at gym have said, try this, try that, or this doctor, etc., I'd just sit him down and say, well, look, it's a dangerous sport. We don't need fighters with loaded gloves. You're going to have to be a man. You're going to have to stand up and you're going to have to own this. All right. I'll stand by you if you show genuine remorse, genuine contrition, and you own it and you take it like a man. And I'd go from there. But what I certainly wouldn't do was just cover up for the sake of it. And that's what you want, isn't it? You've got to. It's the one thing I've learned in my life, Russell. Is the lie. I mentioned it earlier. The lie will always find you. So you get wise too late, don't you? But he should have just owned it. But I guess how many drugs cheats have ever owned it? I don't think there's ever been one, has there? Or maybe one or two examples. But how many drugs cheats ever turn around and say, "Yeah, actually, I was juiced up to the gills." None of them do it, do they?
No. They said that about Lance Armstrong, didn't they? Piers Morgan and the other two people after.
People just don't, do they? Because he's in a situation now, he's damned if he does and damned if he doesn't. If he turns around now, the hole's so deep now, if he turns around and unburns himself, and I think he should, not because it's going to help his career, it's definitely not, because I think it's going to help his soul, and I think it's going to help his conscience by unburdening himself. I just, there was a couple of questions he got asked, and I saw him swallow. You could see him swallow his spit, and there's just something in his body language where he went from being obnoxious to, no remorse, to an element where he just went quiet and he got choked. And I thought, I can see it in you. I can see it. I don't know you personally. I don't know you all, but he's something about him tonight. It looks like he's ready to just complain, mate.
Well, I hope he hasn't got mental health issues.
Me too. Listen, we don't want anyone. This won't help him because he's under massive pressure. This is.
Oh, you can see he's carrying a lot on his plate.
Oh, he's carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders because this is massive, isn't it? This is.
Plus, he wanted to get his hands on all that lolly.
Yeah, it's the money.
And his dad only wanted a few crumbs as well.
It's the money. It's the pressure. It's the family name, isn't it? It's you literally have the family name. Everything is on you right now.
What about all them fans though that shelled out? What about them?
Yeah, no one cares about them, mate. And he has become public enemy number one right now, hasn't he? He's become the probably the most disliked athlete in Britain, I would say right now. He's become public enemy number one. And it's one thing when the public turn against you, but when all your peers turn against you and all the people who's probably been whispering in your ear, don't turn against you, but just take a half a step away from you. That's a young man who's, I think he's in a real dangerous situation right now. And we might be saying something different in 3 months' time. He might be knocking out Manny Pacquiao in Dubai and getting 15 million, and you and I will be seething and we'll be like, how's this allowed to happen? But I don't know. He kind of paused, didn't he, when he was asked a question about, how do you feel right now? And he said, no, I struggled really early on, but I wasn't convinced that he's still in a good place, Russell. I think he's still in a really tough place. And listen, people watching now saying, McGowan, you change your tune. I haven't changed my tune at all. Yeah. I've had to sit down and tell a fighter that his world title fight was never going to happen because of a drugs cheat. So I don't have any sympathy with drugs cheats, but I believe as humans, we have to have a little bit of empathy sometimes and just maybe try and see things from a different point of view. And I think he's a gullible, impressionable lad who maybe realised he wasn't quite going to cut it. So he's listened to a few people. Because I'll tell you something, these doctors who get involved, and we all know which doctor I'm talking about, this Dr. Sajid Usman. Conor Benn hasn't just gone out and find a doctor, has he? What's going to help him? This person's been appointed as his doctor. He's been advised. This guy knows his stuff. Well, what stuff do you know?
You see Conor's makeup in it. You can see how his persona, can't you?
Listen, Conor Benn, right? And I'm going to look, right? We all know people who've had cosmetic surgery. You've been, you've had it, right? And I know good friends and family members who've had cosmetic surgery. And sometimes I don't think you mind me saying. I know this is quite deep. I know this is quite deep, but sometimes when people have cosmetic surgery, it's down to insecurity, isn't it?
Yeah.
It can be down to all kinds of things and down to.
Or you could be dropping to bits like I was.
Well, I think, I think that might be part of it. But like Conor, for example, having, the stubble and all this kind of stuff, he's like, for whatever reason, he was a young man. Not everybody can grow stubble. Mine's gone all grey and my hair's all falling out and stuff. But some people, it really matters to them. And I think there's a real level of insecurity with someone like Conor Benn, and I'm just wondering what that pressure was like being Conor Benn.
Well, you've got to look at it like this. Look at he's had £1 million worth of PR, and he's not won an area of English, British, Commonwealth, European, or a world.
And nor could he have done if he'd carried on that same trajectory that it was on after his first 6
But
or
now he
7
wants an hard fight. Maybe he knows that he's got to take one now to prove everybody wrong.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who's listening to this probably thinking, you know, I'm being inconsistent. I think just trying to react to what we've just seen and trying to come from different places and say, well, just what's gone on here, Russell? How have we got to this situation? What's gone on? How have we gone from talking about the weight issue of the catchweight contest with Eubank Jr. to absolutely just in this position now? I think it's bizarre and it's so sad for boxing. It genuinely is. There's no dancing here.
How many more episodes are we going to have like this before Robert Smith's going to come out and says, you know what? I've been at the helm now 15 years and I've failed in my job.
Well, he hasn't. He has.
It's longer than Prime Minister's getting it.
Yeah, he's failed largely on many areas, and maybe that's because the job's too tough for anyone to do right now.
Maggie Thatcher 12 years, didn't we?
Yeah, we certainly did, mate. 12 years too long, but we certainly did. Robert Smith's got a tough job to do. We've always said that. No matter what you think about him, he's got a very, very tough job to do. It's a thankless task, isn't it? It's like being like Thatcher. It's like being Prime Minister. It's a thankless task. It's a lot of hours, and you know you never get credit and you never get respect. You'll only ever get, you know, when you do something wrong, people only ever tell you. But we do have one thing what we all know now, and this is why this has become such high profile, is the sport is not a clean sport, is it? It's a very dirty sport in many ways. It's dirty in terms of the way it's run, the organisations, the governing bodies, the terrible mismatches that we see, fighters out there who shouldn't have a licence, and we've got obviously, you know, drugs and illegal methods are just rife in boxing. It's so sad, so sad. This has been a real cloud, mate. This has been a real cloud. What we should have had is Chris Eubank Jr., 160 pounds, fit and healthy. Conor Benn moving up in weight. Let them fight clean. No adverse findings. And it might have been a good night for British boxing, but it was just like, it's been shrouded in scandal from the minute they did that catchweight to then the adverse findings to try and still continue to push this fight forward. It's just been, this might seem a bit of an overreaction, but, you know, started amateur boxing when I was 14, 15, 1986. And I was in boxing, as you know, for like 30 years, coaching boxing, etc. And I think this is the darkest chapter in British boxing history since I've been involved in the sport. Since 1986, we've had dark chapters with obviously Michael Watson, Gerald McClellan, but these things happen, don't they? And unfortunately, you know, we get fighters who get injured, we get fighters who die in the ring. That's always happened. But in terms of scandal, I honestly think this has been the biggest scandal since my involvement in boxing in a long, long time ago. Awful.
Well, you mean we're trying to get the fight on quiet?
Just that was horrendous. Just the
board's rolling it as well, don't forget.
You got key pivotal points, haven't you? You got
John characters involved in script, though, isn't there?
Yeah. So you got the catchweight, which, you know, I came on here and I was just so disgusted at that, trying to boil a man down to 157 pounds who, you know, he hasn't been that weight since he was 17-year-old. So first of all, you're trying to boil a man down. And then we had what we thought was the first adverse finding, which became public quite late in the day. And then the promoters and the bandwagon trying to continually now what we know, bully the Boxing Board of Control into sanctioning that fight. And then just when we didn't think matters could get any worse, Russell, we found out there was a second test, which was actually the first test. And then it's just continually got worse and worse and worse. And I just think it's the whole dark chapter for British boxing. And I don't know, he's going to take some recovering from this. Boxing will recover from this because boxing generally does. But I think Conor Benn, I don't know how initially I'm saying he's going to do this, he's going to do that. There looked to be something about him, didn't there? Just crushed. Crusher was crushed tonight, mate.
Listen, if Crusher gets in with Errol Spence or Crawford or that Enos or Furman, they'll light him up and put him on planet orbit.
They'll annihilate him. They'll absolutely annihilate him.
Honestly, it'll be a bloodbath. Honestly, so I don't know what he's going to do now, where he goes from here. I mean, Manny Pacquiao's pushing 50, isn't he?
I mean, Manny Pacquiao. When was his last fight? Was he the guy who beat him, Julius? I forget his name. He beat him easy, didn't he? Pacquiao looks so old and so couldn't pull the trigger. He's not been knocking people out for a long time, Pacquiao, has he? And that's a terrible match, is that? That's an absolute terrible match.
Of course, but Conor Benn will probably write him off, Pacquiao, and I don't know, make millions of pounds and stick his two fingers up.
If Conor Benn is explosive, and that's if he's as explosive as he's looked in his last 2 or 3 fights, which might be a big question mark right now.
It remains to be seen, but I wonder what the press reactions are going to be. Somebody just sent me something weird saying that Twitter's on fire. They're rinsing Conor Benn and Eddie Hills, the 6-0 Iceman from Billericay, fall by way of.
Just, I know we're running out of time now, but I saw something on.
Right, there's 7 minutes left.
I saw something last night, Russell. Moving on from Conor Benn to the man you just mentioned, the undefeated heavyweight prospect from Billericay.
Oh, Eddie Hills.
He's named his purse, hasn't he, to fight Jake Paul?
Oh, he's Eddie coming out of retirement.
He said he's coming. He said, I'm going for 7-0, 5 by way of, and he's actually said for 10 million I'll fight Jake Paul.
Do you know what? He would, Eddie. Eddie would love that, wouldn't he, Eddie? Oh, could you imagine Eddie having his moment?
To be fair to Eddie, he'd said something like, look, if you want to pay me 10 million to get put on my ass, and people love to see that and get knocked out, he says 10 million is my price. And I thought,
could you imagine Eddie? Could you imagine that? That Mayweather program that they have building up to the fight and that.
Oh, 24/7.
24/7. Eddie on a 24/7 at speedball and that.
I wonder if they'd pull the footage out from him.
Eddie would be in his element, because you know what it's all about with Eddie. Eddie would love to be a boxer, because Eddie's like Caesar, isn't he? Do you know what?
He'd love it. He'd love it, mate.
He's like Caesar in Gladiator, isn't he? You know, who gets Russell Crowe at end on slide. Eddie's that guy, isn't he? Yeah. You know, he wanted entertaining, but he'd love to be that Mad Money. Oh,
as I've said before, mate, Eddie Earn's dying wish is to die in his own arms. I've said this before, mate.
Could you imagine Eddie? He'd invent a belt, wouldn't he? Oh, could you imagine if WBC put a belt online for Eddie and Jake Paul? Oh my God!
Well, they could call it the Lucky Seven, because Jake Paul and Eddie Earn would be both going for the 7th straight win, wouldn't they, or the 7th win?
So it'd be cringe, wouldn't it? But Eddie would be unbearable, wouldn't it? Who'd work Eddie's corner? Tony Sims.
It'd be Tony Sims, yeah. He'd have the dream team. He'd have Tony Sims,
Barker and Bellew in corner.
Yeah, Tony'd be there, wouldn't he?
Tony'd be carrying spit bucket, wouldn't it? Barker, the technician, in corner.
Tony'd have stones in his pockets in case Jake Paul were taking performance-enhancing drugs, because he'd stone him, wouldn't he, mate?
Dave Caldwell on fucking ringman, ring bell duties.
Well, we could actually have Ian John Lewis as the referee, because hasn't he fallen from grace? Someone said he was a referee in that tag team thing.
Ian John Lewis refereeing Eddie and Jake Paul, eh?
Yeah.
on a beaver license.
I am the referee.
Hey,
Oh.
what a poo feast it all is, in it? Hey,
Well, we might listen. We might have. Well, we've had Vince McMahon, haven't we? And fighting his son,
hey.
Shane McMahon. We might as
Well,
well.
need John Fury with top off now, don't we? For an all in, we could have tag boxing, couldn't we? Like Callis shows.
You know what the most ridiculous thing about all this is, mate? If it were 25 quid, I'd probably pay for it. That's where I'm at right now.
Oh God, and then we get a fight like Liam Williams, Eubank, and we're all frothing at mouth, aren't we? Because we're starved of action.
Because we're starved of absolutely everything, haven't we? And it's almost, I know we're not on this subject, but what's happened to Fury and Usyk, mate? Where are we with that?
Well, it looks like Fury's stalling, doesn't it, to me?
Well, what we're not going to do is April the 29th, either, which was the date that we're
Not enough
talking
time,
about.
is there?
No, we're in second week in March now, coming up to second week in March. They're not going to do April 29th for a massive fight such as that.
No.
So we've got that. We've got some pretty disappointing things already, and we're only into March, aren't we?
Callum Smith's fight's off.
Callum Smith's fight's off. That one's off.
Terry Harper's is off. Dalton Smith's.
I mean, what really have we got to look forward to? You never know. I might end up watching the Misfits at this rate, mate.
We've got Max on patrol. He's back.
Oh, Max is talking about he might be out in May.
Well, Dennis will have something bubbly if Max is out in May. That'll be interesting who he's up against.
Yeah, maybe. Listen, we'll wait and see. But I'm sure he said some. That's in April, May, June. I don't know, but I think Max is looking forward to a date, mate.
Max is in camp, is he? Go on, Max.
I guess that's why we're laughing, mate. Because just don't take it too seriously.
Max,
Just
don't take it serious. I can assure you of that.
But come on, Max, where are you? I still haven't seen you for a while, mate. I'll be
Max,
having
send Julian them fitness videos. We need to see you training. Get on them scales, Max. Send us a video.
I can just picture Max now, mate, saying, "You know what? You've had a real good discussion about Conor Benn and Eddie, and how have you got on to me? How come you brought me
Max,
up?"
you're a professional boxer. You're in the mix. This is what you wanted, Max. Baby, this is what you came for. Max, this is what he wanted, isn't it, Julian?
He certainly is, mate. But I'll tell you something: the people we've been mentioning earlier on,
Dennis down to Sheffield and then Jersey and then Malta. I bet Dennis is head spinning.
Listen, I haven't seen Dennis on here for a while, mate.
I've got him on Wednesday.
Oh, is he on Wednesday? Pass on my regards, mate. He's a good guy, is Dennis.
He's over Wednesday morning from Jersey. But all right then, Julian. Well, listen, we've had a good chat.
We've had a good chat. We've been pretty liberal and pretty open about the whole thing.
Yeah, we know what's happening. Conor Benn, get that dossier handed in. If you can't do it, just say, look, I don't know how my head's in bits. I took all this advice. I don't know how it's got in my system. I hold my hands up. You've got a year in credit already, hasn't he? From his last fight.
Yeah, people will forget.
Yeah,
but
move on with your life.
People will forget, but you got to just own a little bit of it, Conor. Just own a little bit of it, mate.
Just unburden yourself, Conor, and come on, poke his corner. You know it makes sense, lad. You know you wanna.
He'll watch it, mate. He'll watch this.
All right. Well, listen. You take care, pal.
Take care, mate. Speak soon.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, buddy. Thanks.
Big shout out to Spartan Demolition and Welcome Estates. Booyaka. Peace out.